Testing. Okay. Let's turn that down a little bit. Okay. So the hardest thing about putting this presentation together was finding a picture of myself where I have gray hair. And let's see. Will this thing work? No, that doesn't work. Of course not. Let's see. Let's hit that. Okay, so um, I don't know about you guys, but I'm now 70, and for the most of my life, I always wondered what it would be like when I got old. And now I'm here, and I call that living in the future. Um, and so, as I put, I was thinking about what to show. The best thing I could come up with was how or what we've been doing since both my wife and I retired. So that's what this is about. As far as photography, I started way back in the 70s, like many of you. Had a Spotmatic 2, Asahi Pentax 35 millimeter camera that lasted me a couple 20 years. And somewhere where I got my kids, that became too cumbersome, got a point and shoot, and that lasted until the DSLRs came out that I could afford. And it was in 2008 after Jim Rusher had gotten his Canon Rebel given to him by his wife, and I thought, wow, I can afford that. I need to get it, because prior to that, the only thing was on the market was a very expensive Nikon, and didn't want to go there. Anyway, in 2023, I graduated to mirrorless, and that's where I'm at right now. But back in the day, I used to think that Kodachrome was just the bomb. It was great colors and everything else. But looking at them now, when I digitize my slides, nothing is in focus, and all the colors are all faded away. So, as great as it was back then, it isn't anything like what it is today. So as far as my recording, I call it recording because I do both photography and videography. But in photography, I think I've done most of everything. But the thing I enjoy the most are doing portraits, especially for those that don't consider themselves photogenic. So for me, it gives me great joy when I can take a nice picture of someone that they like. And it's been a lot of fun. Most of it through family stuff, but where I got this portrait experience was at my church, where I decided that we needed to get a new pictorial directory going and do some family portraits, and that was a lot of fun. And we're looking to do that again here in the summer, hopefully. And then, of course, with the club, with the outreach committee, do a lot of that. The video stuff, just because I had a family, I wanted to take videos. Everybody does it on a phone now, but back in the day, it was, magnetic tapes, 8 millimeter magnetic tapes and the like. But then I also sing in the choir at church, and we have some very nice concerts, of which I've invited some of you. If you missed it the last Sunday, we had a real good one. But back in the day, I decided to start recording some of those and use multiple cameras where I recorded everything individual cameras and put it together all at post. And when COVID hit, that gave me an edge up on what we needed to do to go to start live streaming. So that's where we're at now. We have a mini studio. We've got about 8 cameras that we run, and we live stream our services and Bible studies and the like. And then, of course, that's helped out here in the club in recording some of the talks and stuff like that. Anyway, but now what for me is where I've been spending a little bit of time is with my wife and I retiring. We've decided to go and travel a little bit. So a couple of years ago, we were on our way to Patagonia. We had to go through Buenos Aires. A section of Buenos Aires is La Boca, very artsy area. And this couple wanted to get you to tango. They wanted to teach you to tango. And I said, no, I don't want to tango. I just want to take your picture. And they got really upset with me. I said, no, I'll pay you. I'll pay you just as much as that. And then all of a sudden, they turned on the whole show. The one on the right got me a little award at the fair contest, so it was fun. But this was on the way to Patagonia. On the way there from Buenos Aires, you have to go through Calafate. This little pooch decided to pose for me. That was fun. But the whole thing was to go to see some glaciers, and this Perito Moreno glacier is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And they've done a really nice job with the park because this is right opposite the glacier, and it's a nice walkable thing. It's very nice. And then on the Chilean side of Patagonia is the Torres del Paine National Park, which is just stunning as well. And then we ended up on a small cruise ship going through what they call Glacier Alley, lots of glaciers to be seen. And then there was a bunch of wildlife there as well. I didn't know that the flamingos existed, in South America, but they're there. And of course, penguins. My wife really wanted to make sure we got some penguin shots. And in this one, I just gotten my 100 to 500 land, and my wife just said, "Look," and I turned around and I caught this guy mid-flight. So that was a lot of fun. And guanacos. Have you ever heard of the Meinhof-Bador syndrome? That's when someone points something out to you that you rarely notice, and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere. Those were the guanacos. They're almost like llamas, but not quite. And when we first saw them, we had to get the bus to stop, and we had to get the shot. And then all of a sudden we see them everywhere, and they're running around, and they try to keep them in places contained and everything, but it doesn't work, and they put up fences, but some of them don't quite make it. So not a good thing for guanacos. And then we got to Cape Horn, Solitary Island, the last thing before Antarctica. Main thing is a lighthouse that is maintained by one guy, one military guy, and his wife and kids and cats. And he's there for a year. And then there are three monuments. The one on the left is dedicated to the 10,000 plus people that have died trying to get around Cape Horn. Crazy part about Cape Horn is that the translation into Spanish, and speak Spanish in Chile, is Cabo de Hornos. But the crazy part is that horno in Spanish means oven. So it doesn't quite translate the right way, as opposed to Cabo de Cuernos, which would be the proper way. Anyway, later in 2023, we went down to Africa. We started in the Victoria Falls area, so that was on the Zimbabwe side, and it's very spectacular. You get totally drenched there. It's quite amazing how much the water rises up in the air, and then there's a corresponding portion of the falls on the Zambia side, and we also ended up in Botswana. All these countries are right all together in that one spot. So there was some wildlife to be seen, and it was a lot of fun. And of course, some nasty kind of guys. But we saw just about everything there in Chile. But the real destination was this Zulu Nyala place, of which we had bid for a long time, and during COVID, and couldn't get there because of COVID, and so we had to wait until 2023 to get there. So a lot of wildlife. My wife particularly likes this one. And and then this one was we stalked this serval cat that the guy spotted, and we stood there for a long time waiting for her, and eventually she decided to jump up and go after her little mouse. And then we were told that black rhinos were really rare, and this one guy, he was only a couple feet away from us, and he was threatening to come at us. Little did we understand what the behavior of them is, and what he was really doing was depositing his scent on the road, and after he stomped around on it a little bit, he decided just to take off, and didn't bother us at all. This one was a fish eagle that I was downstream from, and I just happened to be in the right spot to catch him flying. So that was kind of fun. And then we got the Kruger. One of the main things that we wanted to see were the big cats. So we saw some lions. And this was also another interesting thing. The wild dogs. If you ever been around them, they really smell. You can smell them a mile away. It's quite amazing. The interesting thing about wild dogs is that they eat their prey on the run. They don't kill them first. They just get what they can while they can get it. Talk about fast food. And then within minutes of each other, we happened to see two rhinos that decided to just put on a show for us, and they were just going at it. The one on the left, the one in the water is kind of interesting because he's missing his horn, which was done on purpose to make him less amenable to prey, to poachers. But apparently that doesn't work because if a poacher comes across that, they just kill him anyway because they don't want to be dealing with that in the future. And we saw babies. And one of the things that, again, we were there for the big cat. And leopards were really high on the list for us to get, but it never happened. So the best that I could do was to get one in the gift shop. And then last year we went down to South America. This time we were there to go to Machu Picchu and get that off the list. Amazing place. How they could go up those steep cliffs and still build things on the top of that is just incredible. Little street photography on the right. These are Incan roads, and this lady just decided to appear and pose for me. That was kind of cool. And then a couple of indigenous types. I don't know if you can tell the friend on the left that she's displaying. And and then the real thing was to go to Galapagos. That my wife had gone there before, and she thought it was something I needed to do, and it was a lot of fun. Not very scenic per se. I didn't get a whole lot of good things, but there was a lot of wild animals, flamingos again, and flightless cormorants. They were pretty much everywhere, and the blue-footed boobies, yeah, and some sea life. And this guy was really something. This is the Jesus bird, right? He walks on water. Of course, saltwater iguanas. And this is what we were tooling around in. This was kind of fun. And let's see. Then the middle of the year, we went to Iceland. Got caught up in a severe winter storm. The whole place was locked down. We didn't get around very much, but we did. We did make it around the island. The weather just wasn't very good. So lots to see there. Oh, we went to a place where it's a sanctuary for puffins, and so there was a chance to catch some of them doing their thing. And of course, there's lots of waterfalls, caribou on the left, and just amazing how just about everywhere we go, there's always a waterfall and a house right next to it. And horses, there's something like 100,000 horses, 350,000 people, 100,000 horses, and they don't let any other horse type into the island because they could contaminate them with unknown bugs. And then just a few weeks ago, we made it back to Europe, and the purpose here was to go on a bike and barge trip. And we started out in Copenhagen because we'd never been. Everybody said it was beautiful, and definitely had a lot of vibrant flowers, although, boy, the projector's really saturating on this. Anyway, pretty sunsets and everything else. But the real reason to go was this bike, and we sleep on the barge. And it was north and south of Amsterdam. So lots of canals, lots of windmills, pretty and lots of new windmills. But then there's, just off the side of the road, there were just beautiful things like this. Most of the people on the bike path, on the bike tour, didn't understand why I wanted to stop when I said, "Don't go anywhere." And then they say, oh yeah, that's very nice. But if you go there, the place to go is this park called Kuchenhof. This is just a treasure. The gardens are just spectacular, just beautiful. Everything about it's kind of like Disneyland, like 100 times because everything's planned, everything's. But the tulips were in bloom, and it was just gorgeous. It was just gorgeous. Then there's this place there that they study the bulbs. They segregate bulbs. They analyze them and make sure that only the healthy ones, can continue. It's quite something to watch. I mean, there was a lady there, doing all sorts of measurements and everything. So it was quite something. Then we ended up in Belgium. The lots of canals everywhere. One little note about AI, I did like in the last picture, this one here, the sky on the left, that's an AI thing because the one that was that day was kind of cloudy and kind of ugly looking. So it works pretty good. And over here, oh, what am I doing? I'm going backwards. I'm sorry. When we got to Ghent, this is a very famous triptych, the Lamb of God in Ghent, and I was trying the trick of taking the same shot over and over again as people move, and then later I was going to do a composite. This one lady stood there for 45 minutes, never moved. And all the shots I have of her, I tried as I could, and I couldn't get rid of her. Finally, I just did the AI replacement, and guess what? It put in everything exactly the same way that I took it. Imagine that. And we went to Brussels. There's a mannequin pea that's very famous. You may be familiar, but you may not be aware of that. There's a Jannikin pea, the opposite sex. Got there after dark, and they were locked up. And but ended up in Bruges. Lots of canals. And then, if you haven't been there, this is the one thing to go see. This is the Madonna by Michelangelo. It was featured in the Monument Men movie about recovering, works of art from the Nazis at the end of World War II. So this is one of two of Michelangelo's that's outside of Italy. So it's kind of neat. And then our next plan is to go to Australia, New Zealand in September. So that's my story.